You are going to tell them that you're not celibate, that you do all sorts of things actually after dark? No, it's not possible.
Okay.
So you basically need to be honest enough to disclose to people what.
ಕೇವಲ ಪ್ಯೂರ್ ಅಲ್ಲ, ಜೆನ್ ಪ್ಯೂರ್ ನೀರು ಬೇಕು ನಿಮ್ಗೆ. HNSD ಟೆಕ್ನಾಲಜಿಯಿಂದ ತಯಾರಾದ ಜೆನ್ ಪ್ಯೂರ್ RO ಪ್ಯೂರಿಫೈಯರ್ ಇಂದ ದೊರೆಯುತ್ತೆ. ಹೆಲ್ದಿ, ಪ್ಯೂರ್ ಹಾಗೂ ಟೇಸ್ಟಿ ನೀರು. ಇದು ಪ್ಯೂರ್ ಅಲ್ಲ, ಇದು ಜೆನ್ ಪ್ಯೂರ್.
Disclose to people what you do. And there were, there were many Swamis, just like for instance Swami Rajneesh, basically, who was very forthright about what he did in his private life, and whose preaching and personal conduct were not so much at variance with one another. So the problem really becomes when your preaching is at a great deal of variance with your personal conduct, and that's when people think that they basically acquire the right to go, destroy your, organization.
But why do people do this, indulging in hooliganism, vandalism? Is it only because the law is not very clear in that, or is it only because
it's just that people don't have fear of the law. First of all, I don't think people have fear of the law.
There are more laws against hooliganism and vandalism than actually against the conduct of Swamiji.
First of all, there is basically there are any number of laws. First, disorderly conduct itself is punishable with imprisonment. So everything that happens is of course punishable. But the problem is our police don't seem to bother. Our police don't seem to think, well, this is something we need to pay our attention to because there are more serious crimes.
They think it's an expression of anger.
Well, that's
so you should allow it to happen.
Well, that's
because
bad.
You feel violated.
Practically every crime, therefore, will have some element of anger. So if the police were to ratify anger at a very small level, the police will have to ratify anger even at a very big level too. So that's not a valid argument at all. The police are expected actually to prevent these kind of vandal acts, but they don't do that.
Okay.
And when they don't do that, and then when you have the media streaming this day in and day out, people tend to think that it's okay for them.
And people are today saying that why this Swamiji has not come in the open to explain his deeds. But that may not be possible at all with the kind of threats people are posing against him.
That's true. Certainly, I'm sure there is a certain risk for the Swami to just emerge into the society and to explain. So you make it very difficult. If you seek an explanation.
One point are asking people to, you at one point are asking the Swamiji to come out in the open to explain his act and his behavior and his conduct, but at the same time you're threatening him by saying that if you come, you know what we're going to do to you.
Exactly. So I think first of all, the Swami, I think, may not be really that important to the society, but what, however, is important to the society is the manner in which people actually, express their anger.
If people have an objection to his behavior,
yes.
How do they feel justified about their own behavior against him?
Exactly. There's nobody to tell the people about this because our media, which is expected to improve people's lives, seems to be worsening it. Our media is taking a 5-minute clip and expanding it and making the only substantial business it does in a day is to stream actually escapades of this individual for the entire day.
But the Swamiji may have actually indulged in this act once or twice, but the media must have shown it 1,000 times.
Exactly. So therefore the bigger culprit would be not just assuming that these acts are despicable. You will have to label the media's conduct as even more despicable then.
Okay.
That's because what the media does is expand upon,
Aren't there any rules at all to govern this, or to prevent this, or to regulate this?
At this point of time, the media is not so, highly regulated in this country, but, thanks to this kind of conduct, you never know. The parliament
but there is a constitution. You don't have to actually wait for rules or the parliament to intervene, right?
Yes.
The provisions in the constitution itself are sufficient for anybody to get any kind of reprieve from
but I can actually give you an instance. The clip actually which has been shown on TV, if that very clip were to be exhibited inside a cinema theatre, two things will have to happen. First of all, the central government through its agent, the Film Certification Board, they would cut out certain objectionable scenes, and after that they would certify that clip as suitable for viewing only by adults 18 years or over. Okay, so therefore that actually, if you wanted to exhibit those very sequences inside a movie theater, you would have to basically invite people only above 18 years of age to do that. But then what the media seems to be doing is
it's showing to everybody.
Yeah, it's showing it to everybody.
And even without an advice.
Yes, even without a parental advice. So the media, I don't think, is doing the right thing here, and somebody needs to, either the media should realize on their own, or the media then will have to, risk the possibility of the parliament bringing in some law.
Now, what would happen if Swami Nithyananda goes to the court?
Well,
even consider the fact that he has committed something.
Yeah, of course, legal options are always available to him. It's just that the media might have actually, calculated that most people in this country don't go to defamation court. So the media might have just assumed that this man will not sue them for defamation. But for whatever reason, if this individual were to take recourse to defamation, then I'm sure media will have to basically pay for that.
Okay,
They will have to pay for
very
that.
heavy price.
They will have to pay a heavy price, but they just assume that they will not be targeted. But if some concerted individual is...
No, is there actually also a possibility of, taking the help of the courts to prevent people like Swami Nithyananda from preaching to people and from what do you say, misleading them?
Well, that would not be possible. First of all, because what kind of rule can you possibly think of that will prevent a future Nityananda? There is no rule that you can think of, number one. Number two, it would not be the province of the law to deter, religious practice.
Okay.
So therefore, I think this is a risk that we have to live with.
So you
but
cannot actually say that only this is right in religious practice and that is not, because that is why there is this religious freedom. Because for people to actually practice the way they want.
I think people have to begin to look for merit in religious practice or spiritual practice. I think one area...
People have to make the discretion.
People have
and
to
not
make the
the law.
discretion. Yeah, people have to make the discretion, and people have to ask: are we actually following the right individual? The things that this individual preaches actually, are those things valid in that individual's life? But if it's not so, then I think people will have to...
Because also, if that is the reason that you're going to that individual, to prioritize.
Well, I don't think people are so much aware of why they go behind actually gurus in the first place, because because it's supposed to be a very individualistic decision. Most often people go there because they see streams of people, actually lakhs of devotees, and they just happen to be one of those lakhs of devotees.
You are one of those who were really outraged watching on TV the ashram being vandalized.
Yes, I was. And I don't think that's actually an expression of culture. No matter how much of outrage you might have felt, that is not the proper expression for outrage. Not at all.
Okay. Is it also because, there is this kind of a universal feeling that, even if you go to the courts, even if you go to the authorities, nothing actually much happens?
Well, that's true. There's no doubt about it. I think one motivating
and also
factor...
the delay in the process of justice.
Yeah, one motivating...
So you would rather mete out justice there itself instantaneously and at least feel that gratification than wait for the courts to take their own course.
I think that is happening. There's no doubt about it, and I think you can certainly account for the fact that our courts are very inefficient for this kind of conduct. Maybe at some level I think it's possible. People already know that courts basically may not be able to do much.
Okay.
But the problem is, what is the illegality committed here? I mean, that's a more important thing. What would be the illegality? Not being celibate is not illegal, by the way. So therefore, what would be the illegality, first of all, committed here? I don't think people know that. People don't seem to basically have, thought about.
There is also a charge of homosexuality against him.
Well, assuming actually that charge will be filed, I think at this point of time, that charge may not actually have much weight behind it, because we have had the Delhi High Court decide one way, which is...
But that just relates to
the Delhi, yes, there's no doubt about
jurisdiction of the court.
Exactly, I agree, basically. The High
But
Court...
it can be referred to.
Yes, it certainly can be referred
Or
to.
this case can be taken to the Supreme Court.
This case can be taken to the Supreme Court, but what you need to really note here is what the Delhi High Court did was to strike down that provision as being unconstitutional. The subsequent development has been that the Government of India did not appeal that to the Supreme Court. So the fact that the Government of India, which made the Indian Penal Code, wouldn't want to appeal it to the Supreme Court can be a good enough basis for courts outside of Delhi to say, well, we would like to wait for the outcome of the Supreme Court. So to that extent, we would like to suspend the charges.
Okay.
So if the Swami would be charged under Section 377, it's an option open to these courts, the courts anywhere outside Delhi, to say we would like to suspend the charge and to see what the Supreme Court does.
Okay, what are the options that the Swami has now as well as what the public have now?
Well, there are many things. First of all, I'm not very sure if this evidence will even be admissible in a court of law. First of all, if you look at this first clandestine video capture, and for this video to be captured...
it's a trespass.
Yeah, for this video to have been captured, somebody had to commit a trespass. So therefore, first of all, you have to ratify a trespass before you can actually admit this as evidence. So I'm not sure if a court of law would be willing to do that.
If somebody admits to having committed trespass, that itself is a crime.
Exactly. So therefore, a court actually may not want to basically correct one illegality by allowing a party to commit another illegality.
Okay.
So therefore, I'm not very sure if this actually evidence will stand out in a court of law. It's possible that a court of law may say, well, thing is, we can't let in evidence gathered by trespass. What was a compelling need? If this individual, thing is expected or suspected certain conduct from the Swami, he could have actually, lodged a complaint with the police. Why did he not do that? And we don't know, when these tapes were shot.
And that is not reason enough for anybody to trespass.
Yes, exactly. And even
assuming that something could happen, I could suspect anything happening in my neighborhood neighbor's house, so I cannot be planting a camera there.
Exactly, and more than anything else, if you don't really trust the police, then you're not authorized to take the law into your own hands. So what you did is you committed a trespass. Now, what have you collected after you committed a trespass? You know, if you really wanted some evidence,